The U.S. military is now facing a new threat. It's not North Korea, it is actually the U.S. diet.
The single biggest disqualifier is obesity.
Wait, we're talking about young people.
Right, youth obesity.
25% of all potential recruits are turned away because of their weight.
At this point in time, we can't field an army because they are, quote, too fat to fight. That's not my words, that's the U.S. Army's words.
A few months ago, the Army missed its recruitment goals for the first time in 13 years. We've gotten to a point where we're too fat to defend ourselves.
Captain Brian Guadette is an Apache helicopter pilot, an entrepreneur, and a living example of why the U.S. dietary guidelines matter.
Flying Apache helicopters is probably one of the most fun things on the planet, but it's also very high stakes. You need all of your faculties to stay safe.
On high-stakes missions, often on the other side of the world, Brian was confined to Army food, a diet dictated by the dietary guidelines.
I always had sandwiches for lunch, lots of noodle-based dishes, lots of rice-based dishes. I was running about 3 or 4 times a week, between 3 and 5 miles, but the weight was still coming on. One day I was in the cockpit and I put my head down and it felt like the world was moving, like the aircraft was moving. I looked up really quick and then I put my head down again. I felt it again. And so I kind of had to, raise my hand and say, hey, we have a problem here.
Brian knew he was sick, but he didn't know why. He was grounded from flying.
For the next 8 months, I went to every specialist.
Do you have a brain tumor? Is it an inner ear thing? Is there a cardiac issue? Is there a neurological issue?
And they said, Brian, sometimes stress does weird stuff to the body, and handed me a card for mental health.
Not one medical specialist asked Brian about his nutrition.
And they were just like, sorry, that's about all we can do for you. So there was a turning point where it was like, okay, well, we've got to figure this out on our own.
Brian decided to try an elimination diet, and he cut out all grains and sugar.
For really just efficiency and for taste, I made these giant batches of bone broth, vegetable, and meat soups. Amen. And I just ate them pretty much every day. And that's where sort of the nickname Captain Soup came from. In about 6 weeks, I got my brain back. I got my energy back. I lost about 25 pounds.
I started to see my husband come back. I started to see my children's father come back. It's miraculous to me what just food can do.
Just by changing what he ate, Brian's health problems resolved. He no longer takes any medication, he's back to his high school weight, and the Army has reinstated his flight status. And now he's sharing his recipe for health with the world.
Now we make just super clean keto soups, and we ship them frozen all over the country.
These days, when Brian goes on deployment, he ships ahead cases of soup. He no longer relies on the Army food that made him so sick.
When my son was born, I was really sick. And I look back at photos from that time and I barely remember anything about that year because I was so out of it. Sorry. And when you don't have energy and you don't have your health, you don't really have anything. I have my brain back, I have my energy back, and I can show up and be there for my kids and for my wife like I want to be.
Today, less than 20% of medical schools require nutrition training for physicians. That's slowly changing, but a widespread lack of nutrition knowledge means many physicians misunderstand the root causes of chronic and metabolic diseases, which are often driven by diet.